and welcome to this Guardian Google Hangout where we're going to be discussing Moocs. My name's Louise Tickle and I write on education for The Guardian. In a minute we're going to be discussing the topic of free education online. Is it too good to be true? But first of all, I'm going to introduce you to the various experts who are going to be discussing this topic. With me today, we have Diana Laurillard, who is Professor of Learning with Digital Technologies at the Institute of Education in London. She's currently developing an interactive learning design tool to support teachers who want to move towards blended learning. And this summer, she's going to be running the Institute's first Mooc on ICT in primary education, in collaboration with the UNESCO Institute for IT in Education. Also with me is Mike Sharples, who is Professor of Educational Technology at the Open University. He's also the academic lead for FutureLearn, the open learning online platform founded by the OU that offers courses for free from universities right across the UK and worldwide. He leads the team that produces the annual Innovating Pedagogy reports, which look at forthcoming trends in higher education. Joining us from Cape Town is Associate Professor Laura Chernovitz. She's the Director of Open UCT at the University of Cape Town. She's leading the university's initiative to open up its knowledge resources to everyone with internet connectivity and engage in the open education agenda from a Southern perspective. Thank you for joining us, Laura. We also have with us Anant Agarwal, who is President of edX, a non-profit initiative created by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Harvard University. It offers free online learning. I had a quick look at the edX platform, and upcoming courses include the very exciting sounding hypersonics from shockwaves to scramjets, and the possibly somewhat less thrilling introduction to credit risk management. I'm sure they both get lots of people signing up. Andrew Ng is co-founder and CEO of Coursera, a for-profit educational technology company offering free, massive, open online courses from top universities and institutions around the world. He's also an Associate Professor of Computer Science at Stanford University and Director of the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Lab. We also have Lani Gudawadina, Regents Professor of Distance Education and Instructional Technology. She's also Programme Director for the Organization, Information and Learning Sciences Programme at the University of New Mexico. Her areas of focus include distance learning, e-learning and cross-cultural communication. Thank you all of you for joining us today. So just to reiterate the subject for our debate, it's a free education online. Is it too good to be true? I'm going to ask all of you to give me a few thoughts on that. And bear in mind, who are Moocs designed to serve? Do they benefit students? And if so, who do they benefit most? If I open with you, Diana.
I think they obviously do benefit the students who are taking them. The question is, who do they benefit most? And the students who are actually taking Moocs, by and large, are people a bit like us. They have university degrees and they are professionals. So if you look at the data for several of the reports which have been done on Moocs recently, generally speaking, something like 70% of those students who are taking the Moocs come from those kinds of backgrounds. The most recent Coursera report, I think, reports about 85%, in fact. So these are not people who are normally undergraduates. So in the sense that Moocs benefit those people, of course they do. You know, they're going to get a lot out of it. But who are they really meant for? If they're for undergraduate students, those by and large are not the people that they're reaching.
Lani, would you like to come in here on who Moocs are designed to serve and where they're actually getting to?
If you look at the global south, one of my Brazilian colleagues commented that MOOC, they didn't ask us what we want, and our students cannot do them in English. Right. So language issues and context issues, what is needed in a specific cultural context needs to be addressed if they are going to be globalized.
Thank you. Anant, are Moocs getting to the people who need them?
Universities are creating courses that are comparable to their campus courses. At least on edX, we're not targeting any specific demography or any specific kind of region, and really experimenting with who might be taking these courses, what's the quality of these courses, what are people getting out of them, and so on.
I suppose that leads me on to sort of the slightly more political and maybe more controversial aspect of Moocs. And I was aiming to kind of get to that in the phraseology of the question, who are Moocs designed to serve? Are Moocs really designed to serve university marketing departments? Would either of you in the studio like to comment on that?
So I can speak from FutureLearn. Clearly one aspect of Moocs is promoting the university brand. These are top universities that we're working with who've got excellent courses, and they want to show to the world the type of quality of education that they're able to offer. So that's one part of it. They're also interested in recruiting students onto campus courses, and that's part of the business model, because Moocs have to have a business model, and taking students off the free courses, a small number will then go onto the campus courses. So there are reasons why the universities are engaged in Moocs, but at the heart, it's about extending education. It's about
purely altruistic?
No, it's not. I say there's a business model behind this, which is to do with promoting your university brand. It's about recruiting students onto your campus courses, even if a small number. If you've got 30,000 students on a course, even if only 10 of those go on to a campus paid-for course, then you're getting a recoup of your investment. But all the rest of them are learning successfully. So there is an altruism involved. You know, universities don't just go into it to make money. They go into it because they're in the business of education.
We've been looking for a long time to exploit what technology can do in education. And if you ask the question, what are the problems of education that this solves, then I don't think we specified as one of our major problems how best to give high-quality education to well-qualified professionals for free. That was never one of the problems that we set ourselves. Yeah. So when you look at what this means for marketing now, so what's our big problem? Marketing to students. And you have 30,000 students online. How many of those are actually going to come to the university? It's not going to be that many, and especially as most of them are professionals, they're probably not going to come to an undergraduate course in London. And certainly the University of London experience is that we are using marketing funds for this kind of promotion. It's valuable from that point of view, but as a marketing operation, it's extremely expensive given the number of people we actually get coming to local courses. If you've got some good online courses, university-level degree courses which run wholly online, then there's some point, because there's somewhere for those students to go. So I can certainly see the point in that. Then I think you'd get value for money out of it as a marketing exercise. Coming to the campus, I'm not so sure.
Okay. Laura, you're there to develop the University of Cape Town's online learning facility, and I would imagine that you're also in a situation where there are plenty of people who would like to be able to access that kind of level of educational opportunity. Do you think that your university is using those people or is using Moocs to attract people to its paid-for courses?
In the case of my university, we don't have the problem of attracting students. So that wouldn't be one of the reasons that we would be producing Moocs. To go back to your question about marketing, in many ways, one of the wonderful things that Moocs has done is showcase some excellent teaching and excellent teachers from universities throughout the world. But it's an unequal picture. There are many universities in South Africa, in Africa and other parts of the world who are not represented at present. So my concern is obviously that global inequality and the online space that the global north is taking up in that space.
Have Southern universities been approached, welcomed, nurtured by any of the platforms, do you think?
I can't speak in general, but I think that partnerships should be encouraged.
Back in the studio, Mike and Diana, what problems do you see for accreditation? I know that virtually nothing is accredited in this country as yet.
So it's very early days yet. To set accreditation in place, you have to be not only working with the highest quality of courses, but you also have to work with accrediting agencies or professional organisations.
Can you outline between you the difficulties there are with accrediting massive open online courses? What are the practical problems that you face?
I think the biggest practical problem is how you make sure that the learners themselves are operating at the level they need to be for that quality of course. And as we've already discussed, you've got a range of learners there. And trying to assess very large numbers of students rigorously, as Mike says, is very difficult. But if you're talking about professional training or professional development, we very rarely assess people on those courses. So the pedagogy and the assessment and the accreditation, or the, let's say, the acknowledgement of completion of courses is very well handled on these platforms. And you have something like the, especially on the Coursera program, for example, the signature track means that you know that person is the person who was doing that assignment. Now, you probably know that with greater assurance than you do in many actual face-to-face situations, I have to say, because people can turn up at large exam halls and who knows who's actually going in. So as far as that's concerned, then I think if you're thinking about professional training, you do the assignments, you complete the course, you've done everything you normally do, that's normal professional training. You just want to be sure it's that person, and they do have the technologies to do that now. It's very impressive.
Moving on to teaching quality then, because we're talking here about a free education online. Hopefully it'll also be an excellent education online. Lani, would you like to comment a little on whether you think MOOCs are being delivered by just the star lecturers, by not very well qualified lecturers? Are people always getting the best teaching, or do they just get teaching that will do?
I would really like you to look at this concept of the DOOC, which is Distributed Open Collaborative Courses, which was started by the feminist TechNet. And they offered one on dialogues on feminism and technology. And they actually focused on the distributed and participatory environment for learning, training, and information exchange. So while a MOOC originally was focused on branding a single elite institution, the DOOC was actually looking at distributed learning, harnessing the expertise of several academics across universities. And I think, you know, these kinds of offshoots of MOOCs can really enhance the learning experience. And I have also been thinking that while a MOOC designed for a very general audience can be useful as a lifelong learning experience or professional development experience, to make it a more succinct learning experience for students in different localities who have to address different needs. They need to be localized, offered by local instructors, and adapted. And if the platforms can make those connections with those institutions that can localize it, I think they would really benefit.
What does a successful MOOC look like then?
So I can give you an example of one that's just finished on forensic science. It's been incredibly successful because it's trying to take a different approach. It's taken an approach of storytelling. So on the first week, you were given a recreation of a murder. And then you have to try and think, who did it? What are the issues? And there's discussion around that. So there's a lot of online debate and discussion. And then each week, the story progresses. And each week, you use a different element of forensic science. So understanding blood samples or footprints to try and help you delve deeper into this murder mystery. So there's the mystery. There's the group engagement, there's the storytelling, so it's a little like a soap opera, and there's some really...
Feels like an online Cluedo.
It feels like an online Cluedo, but then there's some really deep analysis that you've got to do in order to solve that. So the learning is put in the context of this narrative, this story drive, helping you to try and solve the problem. And that's the best sort of learning, when you've got a reason for doing it, and yet you've got to really think deeply about how to solve that, and you're doing it with other people. So there was this lively discussion with a whole set of learners, some of them coming up with very naive suggestions at the start, some of them coming up with quite creative suggestions, and other people coming in and responding. And as the story progressed, then gradually there was an understanding of how to be a forensic scientist, how to do it properly, how to use the evidence. That's, I think, a successful MOOC. You've got storytelling, you've got high production values, you've got learner engagement, and at the end you had the big reveal. So who it was who actually did it.
Just moving that on slightly to ask Andrew then, what will the people who are developing the next generation of MOOCs, and I know it's still very early days, need to do to address the challenges that you still have and to make them better?
I think one of the challenges ahead of MOOCs is to gain increased acceptance of MOOC credentials. We're seeing that as employers start to look at, say, a certificate issued by Coursera, they're increasingly being able to interpret what that means. Universities are starting to publish guidelines regarding what it means if you want to apply for, say, one of Stanford University's graduate programs. There are now certain guidelines regarding how universities will take your MOOC credentials. I think that MOOCs have been doing a good job delivering a massive education at scale. I think the next step is for us to connect students not just with an education, but with opportunity. And the signs I'm seeing towards that are very positive.
What do you think is the central challenge for MOOCs in the year ahead? If we go to Lani first.
I think the central challenge for MOOCs is to reimagine education and to really look at how the digital learning environment can deliver learning in a different way. So when we put the expert teacher in the classroom, we again develop a learning environment which is focused on the teacher. But I think the future is really about people collaborating with each other. We see it in social media. And I think the biggest challenge is to reimagine education, to develop new ways of learning. And I think the MOOCs are a good beginning. And they are still in its infancy, and we will see them develop. I personally would like to see the collaborative nature of learning, the mentoring that students really depend on, as well as the learner support built into MOOCs, either through artificial intelligence-based applications or through people support.
Diana, what would you say would be the central challenge to make it a truly free and very high-quality education for all?
The big challenge, I think, is to discover the important problem that MOOCs are a solution to. For me, the problem they've been the solution to is how to get people to attend to the wonderful possibilities of learning technologies. They've been fantastic for that. And I have to say I'm deeply grateful to people like Andrew and Anant who've made this possible, because there's been this explosion, this outpouring we've been hearing about of innovation. It's brought it up the agenda. That's fantastic. But the big, ambitious problems of education are how to create universal primary education. That was a millennium goal for next year. We're not going to do that. Yeah. How to achieve the demand of higher education from the 100 million across the world who want it. How to address the problem that student debt in the US is higher than credit card debt. Students are going to want solutions to that problem. We're going to have that problem in this country as well ourselves soon, because student debt is going up every year. And yet these millions of investment are being spent on, as we've said, people who already have several degrees, not these jobs.
So it might be the right answer to the wrong problem.
So it's the right answer to the wrong problem, but the right problem is in its scope. I think it is possible to use MOOCs to develop the professional development, which its pedagogy is perfectly designed for, to begin to answer some of those problems of how do we address that issue of educating the 100 million at higher education level, achieving primary school education. We can begin to look to technology. Technology does solve those problems for us if we treat it intelligently, and that's the challenge for me.
Could you finish up for us on the challenges ahead as you see them?
In a year or 2 years' time, we mustn't look back and say, this was an exciting experiment, now it's finished. We need to look at ways of keeping that going, expanding the quality and the reach so that we move beyond just the early adopters, and also setting up the business models so that everybody gains from it, not only the learners, but also the universities and the MOOC providers. And so that's the biggest challenge, to make sure that everybody has a positive benefit from it. It's not just seen as a short-term investment.
Indeed, and thank you to Andrew Ng from Coursera, Anant Agarwal from edX, Diana Laurillard from the Institute of Education, Laura Chernovitz from the University of Cape Town, Lani Gudawadina from the University of New Mexico, and Mike Sharples from the Open University and FutureLearn. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us today.